All right. Welcome back to our meeting number 9 and for B30, and this is chapter 9 for Animal Farm. We left off with a new national anthem, and you got to hear me sing one more time. I'm sure everybody enjoyed that one. And now we're getting into redefinition of what retirement is for the animals, and especially those who are getting up there in age, like Boxer and Clover and Jessie and so on and so forth. We also see reduction in rations. I want to pay close attention to page 75. They never call it a reduction. They call it a readjustment. And we've seen politicians or governing bodies tell the public, we're going to readjust, we're going to consolidate, we're going to bring everything under one umbrella because it's going to be more efficient. Does that sound familiar? We've seen it in health. There's talk about doing it in education. There's the governing bodies, even here in our province, have consolidated a lot of aspects of our main industries, and that under one umbrella, because they say it's going to be more efficient. We're going to save money in the long run. But the transition from once they start to consolidate or readjust, or as the novel states, it's very expensive. There's a high price that's paid. And in this case, in the novel, the high price is lack of food, lack of resources, lack of necessary tools for the animals to run this farm the way it should be run. It's being run according to the way the pigs want to run it, and that's all they're concerned about. So Squealer always spoke of it as a readjustment, never a reduction. It's the wording, it's how it's presented to the animals. If you say reduction, you're taking it away. That's how it's perceived. But if you say readjustment, that sounds a little bit better. It's easier to swallow, and especially if you don't question it or ask for specific validation, or why are you readjusting, that kind of thing. The uneducated population, or maybe the apathetic portion of the population that doesn't, care either way. The passive part of the population, it's the group of people that don't do anything about these changes. They just take it as they come, and they may not like it, but they go along with it anyways. And then if it causes or becomes an issue later on, they had a chance to speak up about it, but they didn't. And so that door had closed. This door is open right now. The animals could speak up about it. They could discuss it. They can debate it. They can compromise come to a compromise or something, but they don't. They just take it as it is. And now this readjustment is really a reduction. It's less food, less resources for the animals. And you just have to spin it a certain way, and Squealer does a wonderful job of spinning it to make it sound like this readjustment is a good thing. So we have spontaneous demonstrations taking place, and this is a nice deflection from the real issues that are out there. If you bring everybody together, to celebrate nationalism, pride in your country, pride in the fact that you own this farm. It's Animal Farm. It's not Manor Farm anymore. Let's wave that green flag with the hoof and horn on it, and let's show the world that Animal Farm is strong. It's powerful. It's a force to be reckoned with. And then when the demonstration's over, then you go back to practically nothing, but you do own the farm. That you do own. So the sheep were used quite widely to ensure that nobody would have a voice. So if some animals did speak up against the decisions of Napoleon and Squealer, the sheep would belt out 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, okay, over and over again to drown out those complainers or dissenters, we'll call it. And we have the same thing happening here. If anybody complained, the sheep would be right in there right off the bat, and the dogs were also nearby too. So we see that in history as well, where military groups are present to ensure that the impression that's being given is that everybody's on board with the game plan that's being set by their fearless leader, I should say, Napoleon. All right, I'm going to bring up the notes here. So chapter 9, we have Napoleon is the only candidate for the election, and it's basically to seize control, total control. And I list a few countries in history, currently that's happening, that have one leader governments or one party systems. Boxer works himself to a point that makes him vulnerable and easy dispatched by Napoleon Squealer. So it gets to the point where Napoleon cannot be not Napoleon. Boxer can't be the person that we all know, that strong presence on the farm, and so Napoleon and Squealer sent him off the farm, and nobody's left the farm since Molly and Snowball. So the other animals are very apprehensive about this, but Squealer says that Boxer is going to receive the best care, and Napoleon reiterates it to a certain degree. But keep in mind, Squealer is doing most of the talking. And I do make a historical correlation that Boxer doesn't have a clue where he's being sent to. He's being told he's being sent to a hospital, but and the animals they're uncertain about as well. So very eerily similar to the concentration camps that were set up during World War II. And the propaganda movies that were presented to show that everything is great in these camps. We're treating the prisoners well. They're being fed well. They're dressed well, and so on and so forth. We find out that that's not the case, and so they were being toyed with the whole time. And tragically, millions of people lost their lives as a result of these camps. So we find out that 3 days later, and if you recall, another character had passed away 3 days later. So we go back to the beginning of the novel where Old Major had perished 3 days later. We now have Boxer, who has perished, and he was sent off in a van that said horse slaughter. And some of the animals that did know how to read or did learn how to read figured this out, and they tried to get Boxer out of this van, and Boxer was too weak to get out of there. And they're screaming, yelling that Boxer, get out of there! They're taking you to the knackers. Okay, and that's on page 83, and that's the point that I mentioned here. In point number 2. So we have 3 days later, it was announced that he died, and his final words his final words, forward in the name of the rebellion, long live Animal Farm, long live Comrade Napoleon. Napoleon is always right. But those are his very last words. Okay, and who's to question it? The other animals weren't there. They're going to easily assume that our fearless leader is taking care of us. They're going to be, and so whatever he says, Napoleon's always right. So if Napoleon says that this is what Boxer said, well, then that's what Boxer said. But we all know that that probably wasn't the case. And so then Squealer explains the van, because they're being questioned about why the van said horse slaughter on it. Well, Squealer spins it and says, well, it was formerly owned by the horse slaughter, but now it's owned by the hospital. They just didn't have time to paint it and fix it up. Yeah, right. Okay, so I will work harder. Comrade Napoleon's always right. So you take the memory of Boxer and you turn him into a martyr. And now, anytime that you need to get the people back on track, hey, remember Boxer? He worked hard. He always said Napoleon's right. So you got to do the same thing. Okay, so once if the pigs figure they got the animals under their firm grip again, they decide to party it up at the end, and with some alcohol and whiskey. So did they really care about Boxer? No. And unfortunately, we lose a very good character in chapter 9. So we'll talk to you later. Take care and be safe.